Trevor, what are your initial reactions to the latest edition of the BYU-Utah rivalry game?
Well, initial reaction is that BYU's offensive and defensive units are moving in opposite directions again. The defense, I thought, did a lot of things to be proud of. The offense isn't getting any better. And it's a huge frustration to see such a great defensive effort squandered like that, especially in a rivalry game. Utah won that game because they had positive contributions from both offense and defense. BYU lost it because they were a one-legged stool.
And I hate sitting on a one-legged stool. The BYU defense is showing well. That's part of the good, I guess, in this conversation. And even against LSU in the red zone, solid. Utah forced to kick 4 field goals, although they did make them. What do you think of the BYU defense so far through the first 3 games?
The BYU defense is starting to reveal their identity, aren't they? They'll give up some yards, but they tighten down in the red zone. You talked about that red zone performance against LSU with no help at all from their own offense to give them some rest and chew up some clock. BYU's defense gave up yards and points to LSU, but there were 4 times that LSU got inside the red zone that BYU kept them from scoring a touchdown. 3 field goal attempts and then a turnover on downs. The Utah offense only scored 1 touchdown, and that came on a short field after a BYU offensive turnover. So this BYU defense is phenomenal when you get down into crunch time inside the red zone. They were courageous, and it's all the more courageous for them after taking the beating that they took, the physical pounding against LSU. And then have to face a physical Utah team the following week, and the BYU defense did not wilt. They rose up and did the job.
Trevor Matich of ESPN with us on BYU Sports Nation. Right now, where do you see the biggest difference on the field between BYU and Utah?
Well, the biggest difference is Utah has got a quarterback that makes plays. Now, that sounds ugly, but the facts are the facts. The tape doesn't lie. Now, I'm not blaming Tanner Mangum for all of that. There could be some of it just the newer scheme. Some of it is the defense that he faced. Some of it is the people around him. But overall, the production from the quarterback position from Utah and Tyler Huntley was phenomenal. He made plays with his arm. He made plays with his legs. And if you take a look at ESPN's quarterback rating, it's not just a passer rating. It's a rating that goes into what you do and when you do it as a quarterback, both with your arm and running. So if you take a sack, that's bad. If you take a sack on 3rd down, that's worse. You know, if you throw an interception on 1st down, that's bad. If you throw an interception deep in your own territory that's returned for a touchdown, that's worse. So quarterback rating. 100 is perfect. 50 is average. Utah, Tyler Huntley, was 67 quarterback rating, 67. So it was above average, a winning performance. Tanner Mangum was 13 out of a potential 100, 13. And that's the biggest difference right now between Utah and BYU. The switch has been flipped, and the better quarterback production, for whatever reason, is happening up north.
Okay, Trevor, so should BYU try and simplify things and put Tanner Mangum in the shotgun and go 3 to 4 wide and kind of abandon what they had done previously because it isn't really working? Or, in the words of Kalani Sitake, we found our running back, Ula Tolutau, 5 carries for 25 yards. Kind of low volume there, but should BYU insert Ula Tolutau as the main guy and then kind of stick with the offense and see where it goes?
Well, the offense works. At the same time, there are wrinkles that can be done that would help the players that are there. Tanner Mangum, if he would do better from the shotgun, you've got to ask yourself if the rest of the offense, in other words, the running offense, would be as good to complement him from the shotgun. Typically, when you've got a quarterback under center, there's more things you can do with the running game, and that should complement the strength of this offense, which is the offensive line, which is a very good offensive line. It's not as good as it will be in a month, but it's still very good. And Ula Tolutau is a guy that they really want to break out and be the featured workhorse running back. The problem is he's been dinged up in the summer, but he's a big guy. And if they can ease him in so that they don't give him, 25 carries and get him beat up against Wisconsin to have a setback, then I think he's the guy they really want to take the bull by the horns and be that guy. At the same time, though, the passing game has got to keep the safeties away from the line of scrimmage. The passing game has to be a threat. And one of the things that well, people want to point the finger at Ty Detmer, the offensive coordinator, and say you just need to switch up the system. Actually, no, the system is fine. There are receivers that are open. There are plays that are there to be made. And the players right now just are not making the plays that are there, much less enforcing their will when plays are not there to be made and having success anyway.
BYU chooses to play a very tough schedule. Athletic Director Tom Homo has said, we'll play anyone, anywhere, anytime. That means it's going to be tough sometimes. Wisconsin's bearing down on BYU. How much of what we've seen from BYU has something to do with how tough LSU and Utah are?
I think that's a lot of it. When you look at defense, you see BYU's defense performing well, but it's easier for defense to perform well early because defense is about destruction. Offense is about building, and it's harder to build than it is to destroy. So they come into the opener against Portland State, BYU's offense, and they were disjointed, out of whack, and didn't look good. But it was the opener, okay? So a lot of teams struggled in the opener offensively to look smooth this year. But then you've got the defenses of LSU and Utah, and they are legitimate, outstanding defenses. I mean, LSU, I think as we see the season go on, we'll see as one of the best teams in the country. Utah is their solid self, with a good, solid, strong defense that doesn't give you much. You have to kind of go take it. And so I think a lot of that is because of the nature of the opponents that they played and when they played them. They got one tune-up game, and then all of a sudden, bam, they're playing some of the best teams in the country. And then they get a third one in a row with Wisconsin. So in fairness to BYU and their offense, it's hard to judge them now based on what they will be over the body of the season because of the quality of the players that they're playing in September.
On the idea of, okay, just be patient and wait, it's a work in progress, trust the process, all of that stuff, the apologists, if you will, where do you sit in that spectrum compared to, hey, we want to see wins now, change now, it needs to be better now?
I want to see improvement now. Sometimes wins don't come with improvement, depending on the nature of the stretch of the schedule that you're in. But I want to see improvement. And I'm seeing Matt Bushman improve. I'm seeing Talon Shumway make some plays. I'm seeing Ula Tolutau start to rise up and kind of get his feet under him as a young player. I'm seeing these things happen. But overall, the improvement on offense is glacial. It's just glacial. But I'm not ready to pull the panic button or to give them a pass. One of the things that we said at the beginning of the season was that we talked about Tanner Mangum. And I said that I don't know how good of a quarterback he will be in this system. This is a rhythm passing system that requires the quarterback not just to drop back, see somebody at the goal line, throw the ball as high and far as he can, and pray that a big, tall receiver can come down with it. That's kind of what happened in the Hail Marys from a couple of years ago. Mangum put the ball in the right spot, the receivers made the plays, and that's a good thing. This offense is different, though. This offense requires the quarterback to decode the defense during his drop. When he gets to the back of his drop and puts his back foot into the ground and then hitches forward, he has to know where to throw the ball. He's got to get it out to the right spot at the right time, even though the receiver is not there yet, and trust the receiver to get there. I didn't know how good Tanner Mangum was at that because I haven't seen him do it. He hasn't been asked to do it until this year to this degree. And he still hasn't shown, I think, the best of what he can do with that. Whether it's him, whether it's the defenses, whether it's the receivers not being trusted enough to get to the right spot enough, Tanner Mangum is still dropping back, looking for an open guy, and then throwing it to that guy. And that's not the way this offense works. That's why I'm thinking that, ultimately long term, I'm reluctant to judge them as being incapable or ready to go until we see them against defenses that are more their size, their own size offensively right now, so that we can have more of a fair fight. Right now, it seems like the last two defenses they've faced have been superior to what the BYU offense has been able to put on the field in the month of September.
Well, it doesn't look fair this week, and then there'll be a bye week. And then there's Utah State, so maybe that's the week. Wisconsin comes in as a top 10 team. They dropped a spot in the AP poll that came out just a few minutes ago. So number 10, Wisconsin. They can always run the rock. Bradrick Shaw hurts his right leg against Utah State. So what does Jonathan Taylor do against Florida Atlantic? He runs for 223 yards and 3 touchdowns. Running back always tough in the trenches. How do you feel BYU matches up with the Badgers?
I think it'll look an awful lot like LSU from the defensive standpoint, from BYU's defense. I mean, LSU's got more fast guys on the perimeter that can make plays. But Wisconsin, in terms of the big offensive line and the running backs coming downhill, will feel a lot to BYU's defense like LSU did. They will be able to stack the boxes. They will be able to stack the box a little better, though, because the passing game of Wisconsin isn't nearly as dangerous as LSU's passing game has been early this season, so that's a good thing. Defensively, BYU's offense will find a few similarities as well. Wisconsin's defense is not as fast as LSU's by any stretch, but their defensive line returns all three starters from last year, and assuming that they're healthy now coming into Game 3 for them, then this will be a really stout defensive line that BYU will have to deal with. I think Wisconsin is one of the best combinations, offensive and defensive lines, in the nation. And so this will be another trenches game. This will be another game that if BYU is to win it, it'll be up to the passing game to be the primary driver of yards and points, and let the running game complement that, because this will be a tough team to run on if you can't throw.
Trevor, great stuff. Follow him on Twitter at @TMatich. Matich Mondays never disappoint. We appreciate the insight and for calling it how it is.
Thanks, Trevor.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'll always tell you what I think is the truth, and I'll always try to be fair. And sometimes people don't like that, but at the end of it all, if I feel like I'm fair, I think I'm doing the right thing for the fans.